Henry Moore was the most popular and important British sculptor of the 20th century. His work enchanted people across the globe.
I made that.
And it wasn't just because of his sculptures. Moore was the first artist to become a true media celebrity, using film and television to showcase his work.
One doesn't do things for the roughness or the smoothness. You do them for what it is you're trying to express.
Looking round Moore's maquette studio, you sense an artist drawn to dark, dangerous subject matter. Work that reveals his themes and obsessions. The figures of mother and child.
One time, almost anything I did turned into a mother and child. Why, I don't know. It's just a theme that at one time obsessed me.
There must be some reason.
Yes, I agree. What I don't know it.
His vivid, claustrophobic wartime sketches. And of course, his reclining figures, punctured with holes.
There's a reclining figure that he made in 1931 in lead, where the upper part of the body, the rib cage becomes almost like a prison cell, these sort of bars across a hollowed out chest. But the bottom half, sort of the hips swivel as if they're completely independent, and the legs are splayed in what seems a very obvious sort of sexual invitation.
A review from the Morning Post of April 1931 gives us a taste of the prevailing attitude to Moore's work. The headline is, "The Cult of Ugliness Triumphant." And the review goes on, Moore shows an utter contempt for the natural beauty of women and children. People love this work. For most of us, these figures are familiar, comfortable, accessible. But when Moore first started life as a sculptor in the 1920s and 30s, they were considered extremely shocking. And the reaction from just about everyone was hostile.
At the start of his career, Moore was unashamedly an avant-garde artist. He was part of a bohemian set, living in Hampstead with his Russian émigré wife Irina, and mixing with the likes of Ben Nicholson, Paul Nash, Barbara Hepworth. Supported by forward-thinking critics like his great friend Herbert Reed, Moore was to push himself and British art into uncharted and dangerous territory.
This is a carving by the young English sculptor Henry Moore. It's a carving in wood. Moore is a Yorkshireman in his 30s, and he has a rapidly rising reputation among critics and connoisseurs.
At this point, Moore was really only known to the art world, but this was about to change as Britain faced its darkest hour. Moore experienced the London Blitz firsthand. His Hampstead studio was even bombed. He was 41 in 1939, too old to be enlisted, but he had experienced the horrors of warfare firsthand, fighting in the trenches during World War I. Moore's sense of how ordinary people's lives were impacted by conflict was to bring a new dimension to his art.
During the war, Moore couldn't find the materials he needed to make sculptures, so he devoted himself to drawings instead, and took as his subject the huddled masses of Londoners sheltering underground to avoid the bombs raining down from the sky.
Between 1940 and 41, he created a series of haunting, evocative images known as the shelter drawings. These drawings saw Moore for the first time striking a chord with the British public. They captured a mood of fortitude under fire, and just as importantly, the process was captured by the young director Jill Craigie in the film Out of Chaos.
On almost any night during a raid, this figure might have been seen wandering about. Henry Moore, the sculptor. Here, perhaps, was the one artist most capable of immortalizing the stoic endurance and suffering of these people.
And indeed with almost no speaking over it, where Moore washes across a drawing, and here is a work of art being revealed to you, the viewer, in a very strong and very vivid and rather exciting way.
Now I can begin to see the drawing as a pictorial whole and can decide whether in some parts the background must be lighter or darker.
The film showed Moore at work in his studios in Hertfordshire, Perry Green. At the age of 53, he was now the defining face of British art. But this figure was also historic, because its creation was caught on film.
In October 1950, he once more took up his notebook and pencil and set down to work up the first ideas for this new figure, uncertain at first of its form, shape, or material. This was the first large reclining figure Moore had ever done in metal. The joints must be strong enough to bear the weight that will rest on them. When it is finished, even an experienced sculptor would find it hard to discover where one section ends and the next begins. Henry Moore's sculpture is at its best when seen in the light and setting in which it was born.
Reed's films demystified Henry Moore's artistic process, showing that Moore used assistants at Perry Green. Moore would create maquettes, small models only as big as his hands. Assistants would then measure these models and create large-scale versions of them that Moore would finesse.
I had to think in the same way that Michelangelo might have done, so that one had to wait until an idea came that fitted the shape of the stone. And that was seeing the idea in that block. That's where I'm grateful for my life, that one had enough talent to go on trying to do something. Life is then has a purpose. And I don't know, I think somebody who really has an ideal in his life, whether it's to do with people, whether it's to do with painting or drawing or poetry or so on. If somebody has that, but then they're amongst the luckiest people in the world.
You regard yourself as a lucky man?
I do regard myself as having tremendous good luck in the whole of my life.